I'm Kristen.
And I'm Mike.
And this is
The Business Family.
You are listening to episode 7 of The Business Family. On today's episode, we talk to Kyle and Linn Wheeler of Kyle John Photography all about their newest business venture, Baer Farms. We dig into the different ways to take risk, building a luxury brand, and creating from your passions. We got to literally sit on their property and hear their story, so you're going to definitely want to listen in.
Let's just jump right in. And I would love to just get a little timeline. So just so everybody knows, you guys are involved with, obviously, Kyle John Photography. And Linn, I actually don't know like any of your background, so I'd love to hear a little bit.
Can you give us a brief
But also,
biography?
you guys are starting a luxury wedding venue called Baer Farms. So yeah, just give us a rundown of like marriage, kids, business, jobs, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you want to start with marriage and kids?
Well, we met in, I think it was 2005 or something, a while back. And I'm from Denmark, so we kind of had this like whirlwind romance. And I moved to Chicago and we got married in 2009. So we just had our 10th wedding anniversary.
Wow. Woohoo.
Yeah. And we were pretty young when we got together. So I was still in school and he was in school and we didn't really know what we wanted to do. But Kyle, I think, always had this passion for photography that he learned from his dad. His dad's a photographer and his grandfather was too. And
yeah, I mean, it was definitely, my intention was fully to become a doctor.
Okay.
So my undergrad was pre-med. And that was the kind of the path that I was aiming to take. But of course, at the same time, I had this desire for artistic
expression,
I guess you could say. Yeah. And because my dad we had traveled as a family all the time, and any money we would save up, my friends would be going to Disney World. Meanwhile, we'd be going out west and taking vacations.
Cool. Kind
of like what you guys are about to do. And we'd hop in a car and we'd go out and we'd have our film cameras and we would just take photos, and that was that.
Fun.
So I think it kind of came about naturally because of that, but at the same time, Linn and I didn't really, and I feel like we still don't know where we wanted to live. So I kind of knew always that becoming a doctor was a passion of mine, I guess you could say, but at the same time, the practical nature of that and where we wanted to live didn't really make that much sense for me to go down that path.
Gotcha.
I'm back.
yeah.
I'm back.
Mike is back. He was just getting
Baby's
staged to
asleep.
go to sleep,
Aw.
so he's back.
Got
He's
it.
going to sing our song.
You heard her in the background, so I'm sure that will be
Oh, I'm sure.
It'll be great.
business
Sure you
family.
The business family.
Got it.
Real life.
Yeah.
That's right.
So what did we?
Well,
I feel
so
like-
yeah,
So you guys got married
we got married.
We met at a wedding.
in
and-
school still.
Yeah, so we had like 5 years, I think, where we were just kind of trying to figure things out. Like
Okay.
I was studying in Copenhagen, so I would be traveling back and forth. And Kyle was here. And we were just kind of like, we had all these random jobs, just kind of trying to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And you were living
Random
in
and-
Chicago.
we
at
were
the
living in
time.
Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that kind of just influenced everything a lot. And then I think at one point, Kyle started doing wedding photography. And at first, it was more just to like supplement our income while he was in school.
Yeah, I took on a second shooting job with a friend.
Yeah.
After coming back from one of our trips in Copenhagen, I was interning for a newspaper there doing more photojournalism stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So essentially came back and was asked to second shoot and kind of just fell in love with the process. I mean, it wasn't, it was those weddings that you shoot at the beginning of your career that you look back and you're like, well, that was interesting. But for
There's
some reason,
good
there was
stories.
there was still something that really was appealing to all of that kind of world for me.
Wow.
Well, and I think at one point he just kind of realized that, I can really make a living out of this. And, so we just started pursuing that more. And like, I think you met people that were kind of doing a different type of wedding photography that you found really interesting. And so we just started pursuing that, doing style shoots. And that was actually right around the same time that I got pregnant with our first child. So I think that also just really lit our fire, like in terms of, okay, we got to like
100%.
take this to the next level. We got to
I was
get moving.
I was sitting with a friend and we were sitting on the carpet trying to eat our vendor meal. And it was at a country club and it was just a wedding that was not all that great. Like the day had just gone so terribly. And I remember sitting there and we're eating our soggy sandwiches on the floor. And I was like, man, I just need to like start looking at things on my phone and kind of escape for a few seconds. And I just got into this hole of kind of looking at this person's Instagram and this person's Facebook, and eventually realized that there's this guy, his name's Tech Pataja, good friend of mine now. But I noticed that he was shooting medium format film with his workflow for weddings. And at that point I was just second shooting and doing a few of my own weddings, but it was solely just through digital work. And because of the fact that I had this just tangible love for film and shooting film, and kind of that was just a part of what my passion and what my desire always was, and kind of just my attachment to photography. I noticed that he was just shooting and doing a different type of wedding and working with planners that I had never really heard of before. And it was just this whole other world that I felt like was opened up to that. So of course, naturally it piqued my interest, and I thought to myself, well, if I can start integrating this into my workflow, what can become of what I'm doing and the brand that we can build together.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So,
Anything else? I feel like we left out a lot
I
of
don't know.
stuff.
But
No, that's great.
It's a lot of years.
I worked, so
Yeah.
just to let you know, what I did, you said random jobs. Let me pull out the list. I worked for Intelligentsia in the roasting warehouse for a while. I worked and did roofing sales. I also tore roofs off. I would come home. I remember there was a day, and it was a hot summer day, and we were tearing off this tar, nasty roof, and her parents were visiting from town. And I came home around dinner time, and I was just like, had black soot all over my body. And it was that moment I'm thinking, like, this definitely can't be the rest of my life. And like, God, there are people up on the roofs every day. My friend owns a roofing company. A couple of our friends do. And these guys do it day in and day out, and they just, that's
Work
what they
so
love
hard.
to do.
Yeah.
They love to work with their hands. But for me, it just obviously wasn't my passion.
That's awesome. So now you have Ingrid, she's 2.
She's going to be 2,
Wow. And Baer Farms has become this new thing that's been happening. So tell us a little bit about, like, when did Baer Farms even become a thought, and a little bit about what it will be and how it came to be.
And that's where we are, right?
We're
Yeah.
literally
When I was gone, did we say why we're outside?
yes.
You did?
We are
we
at Baer
didn't talk
Farms.
about it.
So
We are at Kyle and Lynn's 70 acres of property up here in Michigan.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That they literally, right before this, were walking around with their architect.
Yes.
Just
Matt Messner.
yeah. So here we are, 70 acres property, beautiful.
Yep.
It's very, very weeded at the
Yeah.
moment with lots of wildflowers, which
Yeah.
But
we
it's
were just
beautiful.
thinking we might
Sanctuary.
keep. We'll see.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
interesting.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe have a honey area over there. We'll see.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All about that.
Yeah, so I don't exactly, I feel like the idea came about within like hardcore, and again, kind of touching on what it said with just the fact that when we have children, it becomes so apparent and so real that whatever we're doing at that point in life, we need to find a way, a solution, a better path for ensuring that we can support our families and do it efficiently and still work and do something that we love doing, but at the same time have enough time for our family and create an environment that is so vastly different from what we have, something that allows us to sit back and relax and enjoy moments rather than feeling like we're rushing around, which is, I mean, we're in the busy wedding season right now and everything is running around and we're tired and we feel like the world is spinning. But the idea came about, I would say 2 years ago. We had kind of been toying around with the idea of if we could create something different than the wedding venues that are currently available within the Midwest. And I do a lot of destination work for weddings. So I'm fortunate enough to see what other wedding venues work and kind of what they're doing and how they're making these spaces really creative, but also tying that to nature. And there are a lot of venues that are great outside of Chicago that have that kind of nature vibe, that are a barn or whatever they may be. But doing something that felt, I suppose, more upscale, something that you could tie music into, you could tie art into, you could tie food and conversation, and more so about community in the experience of the weekend, as opposed to we're a venue and there's nothing wrong with that, but we have a event on a Friday and we also have another event on a Saturday and we have another event on a Sunday. So you're in on a Friday, but you got to leave. And I think for me, we wanted to create something in a beautiful landscape. And eventually, I mean, this is obviously all weeds now, but creating something that integrates farming and again, food and just having a space where the client can come in, and we're still figuring a lot of this out, but they can come in on a Thursday or a Friday and they can leave on a Sunday. And creating a weekend for their guests and their family and having a weekend celebration as opposed to just a day celebration. But yeah, I don't know if you want to jump in with like the design and kind of the ideas that we're thinking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm from Denmark, and I think there's, I think Danes or Denmark are famous for a lot of like interior design and like architecture and I guess just like that Nordic aesthetic that has been really popular the past, like 5 years or ever since Instagram became a thing.
It was probably more popular somewhere outside of Chicago way back, but I feel like we're a little late to the game sometimes.
Always.
But I don't know. And I think just for us, like I think we just haven't, what we're imagining for this to be, we just haven't seen anything really over here that has that type of like more Nordic aesthetic. But also I think what's really important to us is that it becomes this space where people can kind of come and you can form meaningful relationships, or you can like come and experience nature, like be inspired, like just
reset
kind of
and relax.
Yeah, like be in a place where you can just breathe and kind of reset your perspective.
So
that makes
what
sense.
would that Nordic style that you're talking about look like?
I guess
Like how would you describe that?
I may probably like minimalistic.
Yeah, so clean. I mean, I always say to
clean.
people like we're in our architect. We should have just pulled him in here real quick. He could have explained.
He's walking around somewhere.
Yeah.
He might
But
probably.
we're talking a lot about focusing on obviously the minimal aspect, but creating clean lines, so angles and the way that light comes into the building, so that it doesn't distract from the subject or the environment or the details that you're perhaps taking photos of. And really everything is using minimal. It was a bug.
Yeah.
Minimal materials. So no gold chandeliers or any like lush. Again, I mean, we're talking luxury, something that's more upscale, but I think upscale can definitely feel clean and minimal at the same time. But something, again, that just, it feels welcoming and inviting, but nothing is distracting with the eye to the point where you're just able to appreciate the simplicity of what the building is. So the idea right now that we're working with, and I mean, this could change because we're obviously so early in the stages right now, but is creating a space that can host a decent amount of people, but also functions in a multitude of ways. So having a space that welcomes the guests, having a space that's perhaps solely dedicated for dinner, and then having another space where the guests are led into a area where they're having the dancing and perhaps some lounges, some other areas where people can hang out, and kind of just creating those spaces that feel more intimate as opposed to large open spaces where you can't really feel that. And kind of having the essence of what feels like home. In that regard, I guess. And again, I mean, we're so early in all of this, but I think that's the exciting part, is that we get to make it our own. There's no other buildings out here. There's nothing.
Yeah.
We have to run power. We have to dig wells.
Right.
Yeah, it's fun though.
That's super fun. Yeah, and I think I've thought this from the beginning when I first heard that you guys were doing this. It's just so unique that you guys are photographers, and the fact that, pictures are the only thing that are going to last, right? It's like pictures or video, but really photos are such a tangible way to remember.
Yeah.
And they're just kind of the legacy. And the fact that you guys get to really design the space and you're thinking in that way is so unique, I think.
And that's what's really cool about our architect too, is that he also takes a lot of pictures. Cool. And he's really into photography. And I think that it's something that he was very excited about, just like kind of creating the ultimate venue for wedding photography too.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it'll be really fun to see what ends up happening. It seems like, like sometimes the project in itself just seems so overwhelming, because, when you stand out here and you just see this is literally just a field with weeds on it and some woods, and there's so much stuff to be done, but it's really also just incredibly exciting to
I think the one thing I forgot
where we'll be at in a few years.
Yeah. I mean, it could be anything. What we did, which I really thought was important, and kind of trying to be very thoughtful and meticulous in the way that we design, but at the same time, the things that we integrate into the build and into the design. So back in April, I had called, we were actually in Denmark visiting her family. I had sent out, I think, 100 different emails to friends of mine that are planners, but also people that I haven't had the opportunity to chat with ever, but are up in that top tier of planners, planning lists, or whatever you could say. So I just asked to set up phone calls and just said, I would love to have these conversations with you, because we want to design and build from the perspective of all of us. So us being photographers, them being planners, the designers, the florists, things that make sense, because the key is, yes, we want to build a space for the client and their families in a place that they want to really be, and they feel inspired by the beauty and the design of the architecture, but also a place where vendors want to be. I mean, I hate the word vendors, but that's what we are, I guess you could say. But I mean, a place that you look back and you're like, well, gosh, that was awesome. Of course I want to go back there. And of course I want to refer these people. And of course I want to continually try to get back there. So having that from a multi-pronged approach, I guess you could say, in that the client wants to be there, of course, with their families, but also the vendors equally want to be there, because we know how it is from those times, from that moment, circling back to where my photo journey, I believe, began in integrating film, was on a carpet floor in a country club with a soggy sandwich, thinking to myself, God, I hate this.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So,
even as professional photographers and videographers, we found ourselves using our cell phones to capture a lot of our on-the-go content for both our family and our business. That's why we purchased Moment lenses. Moment makes a variety of lenses and photography gear for your mobile device that can elevate your cell phone camera to a more professional quality. If you're interested in learning how Moment lenses can up your cell phone game, check out thebusinessfam.com/moment and get 10% off any of your purchase.
Yeah.
To go back to something that Linn was saying about how big this feels, like how many things there are to do, the fact that you're starting from scratch and there's so much to do. How did you think of the idea? Well, you thought of the idea, and then what? Just kind of walk us through that process a little bit. Because a lot of people might have these big ideas and they're just like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
What do you do? Because you had, again, you started talking to planners. I'm sure you started talking to banks. You had to find property. You had to find money. What did all of that look like?
I think initially,
Yeah,
My foot's
if I
asleep.
can start, I think initially it was, we just started looking at land, actually.
Yeah,
We just
simply
started
contacted a
looking
real estate
online
agent.
and we went and we saw a few places and we actually found this property that we really liked. And
last year.
yeah, last year. And it was completely different than this property. It had a planted pine tree forest. It was really beautiful. And when we went to we actually made an offer on it. And, it was our first time ever making an offer on anything. So there was just a lot of things that we didn't know in terms of like how it works to get a loan and like all this stuff. We just kind of like jumped into it. And
I feel like we were half committed at that point too.
Yeah, we were half committed. I think we're still just trying to figure it out.
Did you have any of the business plans figured out at that
No.
point?
No.
Not at all.
You're just like,
No.
let's go.
Yeah, I felt like it was a shot in the dark. I mean,
Yeah.
we're kind of weird in that we've always been, I guess you could say, cash heavy as opposed to investing. And I think a lot of people have said we're stupid and that idea is dumb. But to me, it's always made sense because we've had dreams. And to me, I know that to begin something, you have to have the money to do it. That's just the simplicity of the fact. I mean, so yeah, we started obviously looking for land. Go ahead, babe.
Yeah. I kind of lost my.
Okay, no worries. I
thread.
can jump back in. So yeah, we started looking for land back then, and again, we were half there. We were kind of like, well, this is a fun idea. We had the finances to do it. Let's make a what we thought was a fair offer, but evidently it was too low. We didn't get the property. Somebody else ended up recently getting it for I think $5,000 more than our offer. So they came back at us.
Oh my god!
They came
That's how
back
it works.
at us at full price.
Yeah.
So
Not the $5,000 more.
Yeah. So
you
we
probably set it up for him.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
the
Absolutely.
next person. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that didn't work out. But the interesting thing about that is the land we have now is agricultural zoning. The boring information here. That would have most likely been zoned commercial or residential, which would have been a vastly different tax bracket.
Interesting.
At the same
Also,
time,
in terms of
Yeah, go ahead.
in terms of just the ideas of what the land can be and actually using it to grow something on it and whatever that might be.
Did we talk about what Baer Farms means?
no, go ahead.
We
Yeah.
did not. So bear in Danish is berry, and so we're hoping to grow berries eventually.
Blueberries.
And you found some raspberries today.
We found some
Yeah, some
raspberries.
wild
exciting.
raspberries. We
along
Love
also
it.
have
with-
ramps and morels and
Yeah.
all kinds of things that
So-
we've yet to discover.
Yeah.
So we went in that direction, and I mean, I feel like I've always been, I guess, interested in taking risks, and those definitely that aspect there. When we first started making offers on these other properties, we had no business plan. We just knew that we wanted the property to build something, and we knew we could make it work based on the fact that this is not here. And I've seen things that are somewhat similar in other states and other parts of the world and the country that are excelling and they're doing incredibly well. But at the same time, back then we, again, like Mike said, we had no business plan and we're kind of just going into it blindly. So really, I feel like when it started to kind of just come into place is when we found the real estate agent that we worked with this property first. And just so informative, but at the same time, we built this relationship and this trust together. And he helped us negotiate a incredible price on this piece of land. And it had been sitting vacant forever, which benefits us in a multitude of ways. But one of those is farming, because it was farmed 3 years ago. The ability for us to grow things almost immediately becomes easier for us because of the pesticides and all of that. That's no longer most likely in our soil.
Wow.
So yeah, at that point, we once we started getting really serious about this specific piece of land, we realized we needed to begin engaging an architect and we needed to start talking with banks. And just to be like completely transparent, we paid for our architect ourselves. We paid for the land ourselves, and we've yet to secure a loan for the actual build of the property. But us having the full set of plans with our architect, once those are complete, we go through our process with permitting, and then we go through the process with the banks.
Okay.
If banks don't work out, we start speaking with investors. So it's I feel like a crazy whirlwind of things that we've done already, but also things that we still need to do. But I don't know where, I don't know if I'm more confident than Linn is, and maybe it's just I'm naive because we haven't actually started putting a foundation down. But I feel like the idea, we are incredibly passionate about it, but I think just gauging the interest from other people and the planners that I've spoken with and you guys that we've spoken with, and just the ideas that Mike and I have already talked about with having blueberries on our farm and making blueberry wine and maybe making ciders and all kinds of awesome things that this property really can do and sustain outside of the venue and the business of that itself. And I mean, again, with everything, you have to start small, which is what we'll do. And small in the standards of the scale of this property, I guess you could say. But I mean, the business plan is based on us building a building and having weddings. And then from there, we'll scale everything else out, hopefully. So that didn't, I feel like, answer what you actually asked.
No, it's going, you guys are great. This is perfect. I remember talking to you, Linn, during this, we just spoke about this a couple weeks ago, but during the whole process of buying the land, you guys were maybe looking at buying a house. Possibly you guys live in the city, looking at the suburbs, and that kind of changed. So can you talk to us about that process? Even while you were looking at the suburbs, I know for us, being in Chicago has really boosted what we're able to do, the connections we're able to have, all that kind of stuff, and really grown our business. So just curious to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, not being from America, I don't really know how it is to attend a school over here, or how, really it feels like to be a child over here. And so like, in terms of like upbringing, like I have this probably like, very like television based view of like what I hope an American childhood is like.
Sure.
And which, I think growing up, I would always dream about like, a big house in the suburbs and like kids riding their bikes to school and, all that stuff. And I mean, we like being in the city, and it's convenient, and it's great, especially for Kyle, because he has a lot of meetings with clients. And but I think we were just kind of hoping to find that place where we could have a home, and it could be the home that when our kids are in college or married or have kids of their own, that they could come back to that home, and it could be like, that's just like our forever home. It's where mom and dad is. It's where our roots are.
Yeah.
And I think having roots somewhere is really important for both Kyle and I, because, like I moved around a lot when I was a kid, and I obviously moved all the way over here. And I think, Kyle also really longs for having more of like that stable scenario. So that was really what was driving it. And our son starts school soon. So we were really just looking at, okay, where's the good schools? And Chicago, actually, we found out has a bunch of great schools. So we're just going to do that for now. But we found a house. I was really into it. We made an offer, and we were like already, trying to decide what kind of finishings to have.
we were halfway moved in already.
Yeah, we were really excited. And then at the same time, we were doing the venue. And so it was just very exciting. And
that was just this winter,
yeah,
right?
It was this winter. Yeah. And it really just came down to just sitting down and thinking, okay, what's smarter, because technically we probably could do both, but it would just be tight. And, like, I feel like especially with a big project like this, it is nice to have a little bit of a cushion or not feel like you completely overextend yourself financially.
Do you think part of it too is just like right now, you at any point you could downsize and do whatever you need, but if you have a house, you have to pay, like, that's a bill you have to pay every month.
Yeah. Exactly.
No matter what.
Limiting the risk so that you can put it where you want.
Yeah,
definitely.
In the house too. I mean, just to let you know, it was a great house, but it also definitely needed some significant work.
Okay.
So we knew that obviously time, that would have been an issue. And the financial aspect, again, of pouring a bunch of cash that is falling off the car. Pouring cash that obviously we could dedicate to this and hiring our architect and all that stuff. It was just, we make this decision to buy a house, or we make this decision to really go all in over here and make this happen.
Yeah. But it definitely, for me, at least, it wasn't an easy decision. And I spent a lot of time.
More so than me, for sure.
Yeah.
It was hard for you.
It took me a long time to really kind of let go of that idea. But I feel like I ended up feeling really good about it, actually, just because it just financially it made sense. And even now, just I think what really bothered me is that our apartment is super small. Like, we live the way we do because it, again, allows us to save more money and kind of like pursue what we're doing now. But I just felt like I was so close in sometimes there. And now, since we've had this property, that we have the opportunity to just come out here, hang out, be outdoors, like let our kids run wild in the woods. And, it's just really incredible. And I definitely feel like I get that breath of air that I need, from the freedom from city living for a little bit when we come out here. So that definitely helped a lot.
Do you feel like Baer Farms could become that, like, coming home spot for your kids? Like, do you get the sense that, or you're like, Baer Farms, but like we still really need that kind of thing back in Chicago or wherever we end up living?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I hope so. I think I've tried to imagine that more. So I do think we'll end up spending a lot of time out here once there's a building. I think we'll probably spend every weekend out here, if not more. And I mean, at one point we did toy with the idea of also moving out here close by, but I think we'll just have to see how much work we actually have with the business and and I mean, I think kind of where it takes us. I guess
the big thing for us too is schools, obviously, and we're definitely in an area in Chicago that affords us kind of, I suppose, the lifestyle that we want, but at the same time, kind of the schools that our kids have the opportunity to attend. And they're all great schools, but also, I mean, the ability to go to the studio and hang out with everybody there and work together and collaborate together and have that type of environment is definitely important for us. I mean, as you mentioned, I mean, going from the suburbs into the city, you've done the opposite, and it's just been life-changing for you guys.
Yeah.
So I think, like, that's TBD right now, whether we move out here or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, at least having the ability to come out here and, again, like, let the kids run around, get ticks, whatever it is, like just all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Jed's over here watching his iPad, sitting in a.
I know, and like all
sitting in
this
some
nature.
dirt,
sitting in a dirt
He would just
pile.
be like, he's just like, Mom.
like that. Even if you want to have iPad time and you want to go out and you want to sit
at least have it in a field.
patch of fields,
That's right.
that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Awesome. So something that I thought of, I was just coming up with some questions, was, starting a luxury brand. And you guys, obviously, Kyle John Photography, you guys built that up. You started from nothing, right? You were just second shooting and, obviously happened upon medium format film.
Yeah.
And that, I think kind of propelled you into this other world.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Without a doubt.
So, but you also had to build the brand that would
Yeah.
support that. So can you talk a little bit about building up Kyle John Photography into a luxury brand, and then how that's going to translate into Baer Farms, and
Yeah.
how they've kind of influenced one another?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely I think I just became, in the very beginning, I became more and more aware of, I guess, what those top tier venues and those top tier planners and those top tier photographers that were shooting celebrity weddings or shooting at these venues that I wanted to be at, or these states, these parts of California that I had always wanted to shoot at. And I just kind of opened my eyes and listened and just became incredibly aware of what was being influenced and what was interesting and what was out there, and just the styles that they were using, and kind of tried to integrate that into how I felt when I saw that. So that style of photography, or those approaches, or just kind of the dreamy nature of film itself. And it's such a, I guess you could say, like a niche item, in that a lot of planners do look at medium format film right now as this luxury element of integrating into your brand. And seeing people using that, and seeing kind of the way, again, they utilize that tool itself, of course, sparked my interest. I mean, I thought to myself, well, God, if I can be shooting at these places and I can be shooting with these types of clients and these types of planners, then why not try?
Yeah.
So at first, when I was starting with film specifically, and trying to build I guess you could say, luxury brand.
Did you have that thought at first? That you wanted to be in that top tier with
yeah, I mean, I thought to myself, I mean, and it's the same thing with this, like, there are people doing venues or building venues, and there are people that are obviously shooting all of us. I mean, we're all individually unique, and we all shoot our own product and have our own brands. Does it make anyone better than the other? No, of course it doesn't.
Right.
But I think trying to propel yourself in a certain direction to attract your ideal client.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the approach that I always took. So first, when I started shooting my own weddings, I mostly shot digital, just because I wasn't confident in the entire process. And I was still building up, obviously, my workflow through weddings just as a digital photographer. So I started shooting 35 millimeter film, and then eventually started shooting with a medium format camera. But that was all for myself. And if I thought it was deliverable and I thought it offered a unique kind of gifting element to the client,
Cool.
I would give that to them. But I would never tell them that I was doing it before, because I didn't want that expectation, of course.
Yeah.
So the more and more I started doing that, I just realized, I was becoming more confident in it. But if I set up the proper procedures, having an assistant, perhaps having another second shooter, that I'd make a go at it. So the moment I really started integrating that, and of course, I mean, my weddings to start with film definitely were vastly different, I guess you could say, aesthetically, than they are now. And I mean, that's the beauty of being a photographer, being an artist, is that we're always evolving and we're always changing and we're always becoming better, or at least offering up something different, I guess, than we did before. So with that, I feel like the more content I was creating, and as that was kind of going on from year to year, we started, as Linn mentioned, like, we started doing styled shoots, which was incredibly, I guess you could say, popular thing at the point. But I mean, it was a way for you to design something and build it exactly how you wanted, so that you could try to get the attention or gain the attention from venues or other planners. And through that, it really did help us, because we were shooting in these really cool locations, and definitely drawing interest from planners and from venues. And through that, we were able to start building a brand that had, I guess, a luxury element or a fine art element to it, that those planners were looking for.
Yeah.
And through that, building pricing and starting to raise pricing and starting to work at, again, these places that I'd always dreamt of shooting at.
Yeah.
And still, I mean, there's a billion places that I would love to still shoot, especially out in California. But I mean, it's just, again, that's the beauty of it. We get to kind of make it what we want to make it, and then kind of build it from there, and kind of drive that direction. But I don't know. I tend to not call, I guess, myself a luxury photographer, but more of a fine art photographer. But again, I feel like that term is being so overused
It's been
now.
misused.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, it's just, I think for me, what I try to convey to the client is that I do something that, yes, is different than most, but at the same time, something that I'm incredibly passionate about, because I love film photography, and I love the process, and I love the way it helps us slow down together and be aware of the light and the way that it's reflecting and all of that kind of stuff. But again, to me, it's a tool that I'm lucky to use, and something that really, I think, kind of propels me to be a better photographer as a whole, I guess you could say.
Yeah. And how does that translate now to Baer Farms? Because obviously, like with photography, a lot of it can be visual, but also client experience.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Baer Farms is really going to lean heavily into client experience.
Yeah.
Well, I think, or at least how I feel, is just, we really do want things to be sort of a slower experience, like that people can come and it'll be not just like this frantic, let's get everything ready, like let's get moving. And, we're hoping that people will be able to come and just really like unwind and feel settled and just, kind of have like that deeper, meaningful experience. And not only, hopefully connect with us, but also that the vendors will be able to kind of like feel the same way, like connect with each other and work together. And I feel like over the years, like how we've, with how Kyle's business started, that's really been a huge part. It's just been like connecting with everyone that we've shot with, or that we've worked with on style shoots, or that he's worked with on weddings. And I still feel to this day that like every time we have a wedding where you kind of just reach that magic point that you're like connecting with the client, you're connecting with people on site, and people are able to just kind of like be in it and relax and have a good time, and everyone's excited about creating something that's unique or a little bit more than just your average wedding. I always feel like that's really, really special. And I think that's really what we're hoping, that we can kind of, that this environment that we're creating, that will just somehow automatically foster that in a way.
And I think like kind of building a place that feels, again, like home or family or whatever it is. I mean, when you shoot a good wedding and just everyone is in sync and everyone's just like, it's a team. And you just get it, and you're happy to be there, and everything is just firing on all cylinders. But at the same time, because of that, it facilitates this just creative magic. And I think having that and being able to kind of just build whatever we want. I mean, we get to, with the help of everybody else, create this space that hopefully is so vastly unique and different from what's available. And I think that's part of the funny thing too, is you're getting all of this information from planners and all that kind of stuff. And some people are incredibly specific about what they think you shouldn't do. And I think to myself half the time they've been like spot on. And I'm like, oh yeah, God, that's a terrible idea. But then other times I'm like, well, would it be the end of the world if we did do that? Just because it's not being done doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't be doing it. But like in terms of the relationship between, I guess, Kyle John Photography and Baer Farms, again, using that network of everybody to just hopefully propel the weddings that are actually being booked and really lean on everybody for that. But at the same time, I mean, we were even talking in the car on the way here. and saying like, yes, we want to be financially stable and bring in money so that we can continue to obviously support this place, but at the same time build up the other fun things that we want to do, like making wine, and building those facilities for that. But at the same time, like having just events that we're not charging anybody to come on the land and just saying, we want you to come here because we think it would be cool to collaborate, and having more collaborative dinners or events or art installations or concerts or anything of the sort, just because we want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cool to hang, and it's cool to do fun things, and it's cool to just be creative together.
And by what you mean by it's cool is that you really enjoy that.
Yeah. And I said cool about 6 times.
I know.
think.
I'm like, but you're not trying to be cool. Like
No,
that's not you.
Not,
No.
Yeah.
I'm
It's like
wearing
you
a
just
sweaty
you
Patagonia
like that,
hat
yeah.
and some dirty
Yeah.
boots, and I definitely
Yeah.
have about a pound of weeds in my boots as well at the same time.
So it's something that I just thought of. I mean, hearing you talk, I know that you're very calculated in your risks, but you're willing to take them. Linn, are you like risk averse? Are you like along for the ride? What's kind of your perspective on all this?
Well, a little bit of everything,
How much time do you have?
Yeah.
This is the
Gonna
marriage
start my
counseling
therapy
part of the
session.
session.
Yeah.
It always
Let me
turns into
just-
marriage counseling.
Take a deep breath. Well, I mean, honestly, like this whole idea is something that Kyle kind of dreamed up, and it took me a while to feel like I was really on board with it. But you know, like there's, you know, our whole story with like me moving here, and you know, it's like so long and complicated, and I think you know, it's kind of like brought us to this place that I think none of us really expected we would be at right now. And so but I think we've always had this dream. Even when I was growing up, I always dreamt of like having a space that would kind of be a hub where people could have like some sort of experience with culture, whether it's like art or music or food. And so like once I saw that this could potentially also be something that could house that dream, I really started feeling on board. And I think like, as you know, I just had 2 babies. And so I feel like I had this long while, you know, my oldest is almost going to be 5 and my youngest is 2. And it just took me a while to like kind of, you know, I was all absorbed in that for a while. And then that was like all I could literally focus on, I felt like. And then as I'm coming to this point where they're bigger and I'm having more freedom, I feel like I'm feeling more inspired and just excited about also having this more of a like a career path or whatever you call it. I don't really feel like this is a career path because in a way it's just like this fun project we're doing, and it's, you know, it's based on just pure dreaming basically. And I think in terms of being a risk taker, I obviously moved here, you know, which was a huge deal. And I've always, you know, anything I have always wanted to do includes being kind of like a dreamer and not think too much about the realities of what's possible and what's not. So I think I've always been that type of person, where Kyle is actually more grounded in reality and what's like feasible at this moment. And I'm more like, no, let's just like jump in a car and move to
we've always
California or something.
anytime we've always talked about going back to Denmark, I've just said like, I'll do whatever. I'm down to dream and I'm down to do anything. But my reaction is always, I think because it's very financially based and that obviously needs to make sense, has always been one of these scenarios that have been like, yeah, great, let's do it. But just we need to find a job and I need to find a job. And I think there's so many things that are obvious about that, but at the same time, I think the element of taking risk in that isn't there for me. So sometimes I can be a risk taker, but at the same time, I tend to be more calculated, I guess, in those risks that I feel like we're taking. And to me, like, as weird as it may sound, this doesn't necessarily seem like a risk, which the amount of friends, when we told them we were doing this, or at least buying into property, I mean, everyone was naturally very curious with questions, to put it lightly. But I don't know. I mean, it's just never crossed my mind. And I mean, again, as I said earlier, maybe it's just the fact that we haven't actually started building that just makes me kind of calm at this point in time. But I feel like just being out here draws that out of me as well. And I think you as well, and the kids and anybody who comes out here as well.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like I had a serious like panic moment after we signed on the property, just to be honest.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like every time we meet with our architect or just meet with any like other creatives that also are living kind of the type of life that we are, I feel like it's just so encouraging, and it's inspiring. And I feel like just being surrounded by those types of people that encourage you and like kind of don't think you're completely crazy always helps me, because it is hard not to listen to people who worry a lot or who don't understand it.
Totally.
And right now I definitely think for me that's what I need. Like I need not just for people's like pat my back or whatever, but just to have people who can see the potential also. I think that really like helps. And yeah, I mean another thing that it really came down to for me was I don't want to sit at the end of my life and just think like, oh, it could have been all these things, like we could have done all these different things and we didn't, and we took the safe route all the time. Like I think we want to do something that we believe in and that we just are excited about. And I really like this was what came up when we started thinking about it. So,
I mean, I think there's potential beauty in chaos. And I mean, some might think this is totally chaotic and crazy, but we firmly believe that what can become of this will be really beautiful and powerful and just special, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
If you guys could think of one piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's, got big ideas, wanting to take a risk, but has a family and is trying to figure out, like, what do I do? What would you say?
I mean, just to start.
Do you want me to get it?
What is it?
There's a worm on my
caterpillar.
microphone.
It's just hanging out.
How did he get all the way up
I
there?
don't know.
That's
Just don't
impressive.
flick him on me.
Just let him be him or her or it. So when we were in the early stages of having children, that's when I decided to go full time with photography.
Okay.
Linn was at home, and it was one of those things that I think we had just gotten to the point that I had wanted to do it full time for so long. And I mean, it's the same story with everybody. I mean, probably you guys, I definitely know Eric as well. But it became evident that was the direction that we needed to take. And I think there's a point in everybody's life that you find that path and you can continue on doing what you're doing, which is fine. But also you can take the risk, I guess you can say, and the amount of time that you have available to really develop your game plan will drive success. And I mean, we're all incredibly smart, talented. Well, some of us are smart. I feel like I'm still trying to figure that out, but I feel like we're capable humans. And I think there's one thing keeping us from doing any of that. That's fear.
Yeah.
yeah, that's sorry. I just wanted to say that before you jumped in.
Yeah, no, I think that's a big part of it. Like not letting fear control you and thinking you're capable. I also think from a family perspective, like I stayed home with our kids and Kyle worked and, worked on his business. And I think, once you have kids, you obviously have to kind of sort of find that balance, because someone has to take care of the kids,
Right.
and you want everyone to be happy and healthy. And I think just for us, that meant me staying home and Kyle really just putting everything into his photo business. And I would say, like, it's a lot of hard work. So if you're wanting to do something like have your own business or like, work as a creative somehow, you really just, it's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of hours and it's a lot of unpaid hours too, and like even with Kyle, once he has these more upscale weddings, I would say people don't really know how much work and effort it takes to, a lot of people think, oh, the photographer's here, and it's like these 8 hours and that's all the effort he puts in to this wedding. But really it's like, maybe a year's process of like communicating with a client before, like meeting up, having those meaningful interactions. And then like, there's the wedding day or, whatever. And then after that, there's all the editing and like delivering the images. And, so it really is a lot of effort that you put in before. And, and you even do that even before you book a client. So sometimes you don't even get a reward.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too, like, knowing that you have to jump in one direction, but at the same time, knowing that you're going to work double the amount of hours you've ever worked in your entire life while trying to balance your family life and balance any social life that you might still have left. But at the same time, building your community and building your network and finding people that, and we've talked a lot about this lately, but finding the people that, you have the same passions, you're like-minded in a multitude of aspects, but at the same time, finding those people that you can climb the mountain together with. Because a lot of times we're looking for the people that are up here and those people already have the people that they've climbed the mountain with. And
that's such a great perspective.
That doesn't mean you can't take risks and try to get up there with them, but finding the people that really just, that you can just sync up with.
Connect with.
Yeah. The connectors in your life.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I think that's really huge.
Yeah.
Community is so key to just creative success.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
This little cutie.
I guess it doesn't, maybe not have to be. I'm sure there's some people that thrive in independence, but it's not me.
No, and this is the whole reason why I joined you guys at Creative Club, and that's been a integral part for me. Just having conversations during a winter period when we're all shut down for the most part. When we're all hibernating and when we're typically all by ourselves. But being able to have a space like that where we can have those conversations, and really, I feel like a lot of the progress that we made was because we were allowed to do that. And I don't know. Anything you want to jump in?
No, I think like another thing, I guess, if you want to go back to like the more family perspective, I think an important thing to remember when you're starting things or like you're in the throes of it is just, like appreciate each other as partners and like, because there'll be a lot of times, especially, when you have kids where one person has to work more than the other, and like just kind of accepting that and like seeing the value in everyone's effort to making your family and your business work at the same time. Like it's just as important that that one changes diapers as that one sometimes writes an email or
For sure.
you know, like to have that balance.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Hi.
Awesome. Well, I think Sage is telling us we're done.
Yeah.
But thank you guys so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
This was really great.
Thanks for coming
Thank
out.
you.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I mean, I know I
Love
speak for
it
both
out
of us.
here.
We'll do part
Yeah.
2 once we
Yes.
maybe
Oh my gosh.
We'll do a continual.
yeah,
Please.
maybe
Yeah.
For
like
sure.
halfway
Yeah.
or when construction starts and
Yeah, that sounds
we
amazing.
can kind of just follow the story along.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
How's that
Love it.
taste? That tastes pretty good there, Sage.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank
And
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back.
Boom.
Peace.
That's it.
Awesome.
Hey, if you liked this or any of our other episodes, jump on your phone or your computer right now and let somebody know. We'd love if you tag us on social media and leave us a review on iTunes. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.